Everyone likes creating ideas for their favorite games, and Destiny, with its huge variety in play styles and exotics, is no exception. Unfortunately, like some kind of hilarious prank by God himself, I have been put in the unique situation of getting quote unquote popular on the internet by subjecting myself to reading some of your dumbest ideas. Today we will go through 5 different exotics that stood out to me from you, the viewers at home. To keep things funky fresh, this time around and perhaps going forward, if it ends up being something you guys like, I will place a winner for the categories of most stupidest, most hilarious, most interesting, and lastly, I will feature your best exotic ideas from the YouTube comment section. So, starting with the most hilarious category, because I'm sure most of you, that's probably why you clicked on this video, we have from our Patreon supporter, Midas, who has the idea of the exotic, the outside. The flavor text reads, the out what? The trait is sunlight. Gain stacks of vitamin D the longer you are outside. Exotic perk, vitamin D. Gain bonus to overall health and recovery and gain an incremental 10% chance to drop good bone structure per stack of vitamin D up to 100%. Gain true sight when a good bone structure drops. Sometimes something is funny because it's true. Did you know that Destiny 2 has some of the highest player retention rates of any major game on the market as it stands right now, or at least one of the best player retention rates of any game on the market right now? In a less corporate language, this means that most Destiny players spend more time slaying Vex than they do having a healthy, respectful, mutual relationship with someone you love. In other words, y'all can be a bunch of swamp-ass nerds. What I particularly like about the way Midas has set up this quote-unquote weapon is that it really does sound like somebody at Bungo just sat down and wrote it. I mean, they even got the way that the good bone structure drops. They got a reference to that. They've got a true sight reference in there. Like, damn, props. I love it. Excellent. 10 out of 10 for the humor. My funny bone has been thoroughly tickled, and I feel at the same time that I've been called out. Self-deprecating humor aside, we have some really solid ideas in this batch. Out of the batch of ideas that we had, though, I found one in particular that popped out to me as having a really unique design that could still be possible in the game. So, for our most interesting category winner, we have Dale T, who has the idea of the Fundament's Curse. It's a pulse rifle with the corruption element. It has a magazine of 40 and it fires 4-round bursts, something that we haven't really had in the game. There's I think that there is a Garden Salvation pulse rifle. We definitely don't have an exotic of it. So 4-round burst pulse rifle is already getting a thumbs up from me. And this is where it particularly piqued my interest. Its trait. It takes 2. This weapon is equipped with 2 sights, one long zoom sight and an offset short zoom sight. Switch between them by pressing whatever button, probably reload, while aiming down sights. Its exotic perk is called Corruption Surges. Landing a burst of all precision hits send a corruption surge through the enemy, causing significant damage. Continued burst of all precision hits increase the damage of corruption, stacking up to 5 times. The ability to switch between sights on the fly isn't something that we have in the game yet, despite it being kind of a common trope that we see thoroughly explored in other multiplayer shooters such as Battlefield or Call of Duty. And of course, we have to give credit to the foresight of planning for the Witch Queen. Despite this, I still think we can push this idea a little bit further. So here's what I have in mind. I love this idea, but let's take it just kind of a little bit past that. Why not allow the RPM, the weapon, to switch also depending on what sight you're using? We can change the magazine to 36 so that it's nice and divisible by both 3 and 4-round burst pulse rifles, and let the closer range sight perform in the rapid fire archetype, something that we don't actually have in the game yet either. We don't have a rapid fire exotic pulse rifle, so boom, there's another thing covered, and leave the longer zoom scope for having the heavier 4-round burst. Along with this same idea, for the exotic perk, we can allow it to proc on 12, so 12 hits, whether it be from 4 bursts from the rapid fire frame or 3 bursts from the heavier hitting frame. As for how the perk actually operates, I think it would be neat if this gave a debuff effect rather than just causing generic damage that will increase the amount of incoming damage to said debuff target, as well as causing this debuff to nearby enemies. Maybe we could do it something along the lines of how the necrotic grips work, where if you debuff one enemy, it'll debuff the next enemy. And if that enemy's next to something that's undebuffed, and then it'll do it to that. And you can do this like this big spread of corruption through the whole thing, really playing into this corruption idea. It'll allow it to play a multi-purpose role of both decent DPS, decent crowd control, and in something like PvP, landing 12 hits from either RPM to the head will absolutely kill, except if you are too far away, effectively range boosting this weapon like Malfeasance. Wait a minute. Actually, this could be a really good rework to Malfeasance. This could be like the quote-unquote fix for Malfeasance Data was so distraught about in his latest videos. Huh. A bit of a rant, but a good exotic idea, and I kind of have a sort of guilty pleasure of mine of, really digging into really interesting ideas in the game. But don't worry, because just like the slow eventual decay into entropy our bodies will face over time, the most stupidest category will inevitably be filled by one of y'all. For today's lesson in brain damage, we have Magnus, who actually has been in a video in the past who has the idea of the hand cannon, or the Han cannon, if you will, which will make more sense as we start digging into this a little bit more here. It's an exotic rocket launcher. Its intrinsic fires flaming explosive Shah-Hans that leave behind a large AoE pool of fire, similar to how Dragon's Breath worked back in D1. It's got quick launch, impact casting, overflow, and it has Wolfpack Hans, which reads that Shah-Hans that strike a target split off into multiple smaller Hans that praise Commander Zavala as they track the target. The flavor text for this exotic reads, "This all I'll ever be good for." Its exotic catalyst returns Shah-Han to reserves if all Wolfpack Hans hit the same target, because we all know he's never going away. Magnus has been in previous videos like I mentioned, and he's back with a vengeance. If you would like to try to take Magnus's place as King of the Destiny Dumb, consider supporting us on Patreon. With just $3 a month of support, you can not only help us make content, but get a clear slide into my DMs. If you're strapped for cash, no worries, your eyeballs on the screen are enough support as is. Anyways, I don't like Shah-Han. I think all of us here were a little worried that he would try to fill the absolutely legendary shoes of Cade for the Hunter Vanguard. And if that happened, I think there would actually be like an IRL riot. But regardless, firing him at my opponent sounds like a far superior and more useful option. Can we appreciate the amount of high-key shade Magnus is slinging at Shah here? Like, even down to the catalyst is just nothing but pure darkness. It's so stupid. I love it. Fuck you, Shah-Han. For our next stop, we have to console Guy Fieri because we're making a stop to Flavortown. The title is a bit difficult as this difference between the most interesting and the most flavorful exotic is a bit narrow. Basically, interesting distinguishes the most original idea within the context of Destiny, or somebody like, I'm going to slaughter that name, so I'm not even going to try, with the idea of the sewing needle as a kinetic auto rifle, has an idea that just oozes a cool idea or lore or art, but perhaps isn't the most innovative idea. The sewing needle is an exotic kinetic auto rifle. Its flavor text reads, "Extra patchwork may be required." Its perk is Stitching It Up. Fires needles that impale targets. Upon firing on another target, the needles are ripped out of the original target and shot onto the next one, dealing a chunk of damage to both targets. Needles disappear on stow or reload. The second perk is Patchwork. Rapidly defeating targets partially refills a magazine from reserves, even suggested that the catalyst will now completely refill it from reserves. This idea paints a very curious idea in my mind, but at the end of the day, unfortunately, it's very similar to the Zalo Supercell in terms of how it actually operates from Destiny 1. If you're a Destiny 2 Zoomer, it's very much similar to the Risk Runner's like arc damage perk that it has. A very innovative execution on the classic crowd control burr gun I have seen in a while, and for PvP, it sounds like it wouldn't be too broken. The problem with something like the Risk Runner is that its high is way too high if it were reliably proccable in something like PvP, and its low is way too low to justify its use as a regular weapon. The Sewing Needle, as being a sort of crowd control, multi-hitting type option, threads the needle, between those two options. It's a very, very solid idea. Like I said, kind of at the end of the day, it is similar to the idea of like chain arc damage. Obviously, this is doing it kinetic, so slightly different there, but kind of accomplishes the same goal. And now for the coveted title with dark mode of featured exotic of the week from y'all in the comment section, we have the Pun God, who suggested the idea of the Guardian Angel. The flavor text is, "Someone's watching over you." The exotic perk is called Second Chance. every kill grants a stack of Blessing from Beyond. The class ability recharges slightly faster with every stack. 10 stacks of Blessing from Beyond creates an effect of Eternal Life. Eternal Life grants you the ability to survive a lethal blow. Your class ability instantly recharges and you gain an overshield. Eternal Life will only be granted once per life. So this obviously could be broken up into 2 perks, obviously one for the trait, one for the exotic perk. The trait could just be that you get these stacks and that your class ability recharges faster. And the actual perk could be the thing that brings you back from the dead. Now, the first thought that I have in here was, holy shit, would this be strong in PvP? But then I thought about it for a second. If we let Guardian kills let them be only 1 stack, unlike how something like, let's say, the Traveler's Chosen works, this could actually legitimately work. I actually fear this being a little bit too strong in PvE rather than PvP, because here's the thought. This essentially can create like a kill streak system for this weapon, where if you're able to get, let's say, 10, maybe even 20 kills, maybe we could consider Guardian kills count for 2, and then regular PvE enemies count for just the normal 1, right? Something along those lines. We could obviously tweak the numbers. We could even do it something crazy where like it goes up to 50 stacks and Guardians count for 5. That way it's still, you have to hit 10, but I digress. The idea here is that if you're able to get on this long kill streak with this gun, you essentially have 1 free get out of jail card. Essentially, if you play well, you can kind of like backload yourself in case something goes horribly, horribly wrong, allowing you to get that second chance. It very much operates similarly to how a Totem of Undying works in Minecraft, ironically, now looking at this idea. But the idea is quite interesting. I'm curious to see what you all think in the comments below of this idea, but I think this could legitimately work. And then obviously something in like Trials of Osiris, that was just never going to happen because those stacks will go away between rounds, making sure that you can't just go busted on somebody during the Trials of Osiris games. But anyway, really solid idea. I think this could be really, really well implemented into the game if we were careful about those stacks. But like I said, let me know what you guys think about it. If you guys want to see more of these videos, it is absolutely vital. Please like the video, comment on the video, subscribe. I know that's the most common thing you'll see of any like YouTube channel in general, but it really just let me know if you guys, this is something that you guys are interested in. We've got some wavering interest in some of these videos, so share this around with your friends. It really, really does help us out a lot. I hope you guys enjoyed this stuff. Bless your faces and deuces.